A probate sale can feel intimidating as it's not an easy process, and it certainly isn't simple, which can put a lot of strain on families. But I can say that armed with knowledge and trusted help, it can be a lot easier. We're going to chat about that today. I'm Sierra Haskins with the NorCal Life Real Estate Group, and me and my team have successfully sold multiple homes during the probate process. So if you have any questions while watching this video, I invite you to reach out and book a call with me anytime, and I would be happy to talk with you about it. You can find all of my contact information right here in the video description below, but let's just jump right into the video. It can feel overwhelming to those starting the probate process, so I'm just going to share some basic information and then 4 helpful suggestions that you may want to consider during the probate process. Contrary to popular belief, real estate can be sold during probate, but if there isn't an appointed executor of the estate, then the probate court will find somebody to appoint, usually a friend or a family member that would be considered the administrator. The courts will appoint that administrator to oversee the entire probate process, especially selling the home. So after all of the steps taken during the probate process are completed, then the court will step in and handle how the proceeds will be split amongst the beneficiaries. When selling a home during probate, one of the important things to know is that there will be an appraisal on your loved one's home. It will be an appraisal based on the date of your loved one's death, done by what's known as a probate referee. And it's important to know that when you're selling your loved one's home, whatever number it is that that probate referee comes up with as the appraised value, you're going to have to sell the house within 90% of that number. Now, recently, the home prices have started to rise again a bit here in Northern California, and we as a team haven't yet had an issue selling any of the homes in probate in the price range that they need to be in, if not over asking. After working with multiple probate attorneys and different families going through the process, I can say that handling a probate sale is much different. It's a totally different situation than a traditional sale of someone who lives in the home. If the decedent has personal property and you're planning on selling that during the probate, that needs to be dealt with separately from the actual home, and I will be covering that in another video. So that's what I wanted to share today, is the actual process of the home sale in probate. It's important that you know that probate is a court-supervised legal procedure where beneficiaries can legally obtain financial and physical assets that were promised to them. That's what it says. Now, this in the case of a will, when there is a will, the person who passed away would actually fill out their will saying what they want to give to each of their beneficiaries, including the percentage of the home. Of course, once the house is sold, if there happens to be any debts that need to be cleared, that's going to have to happen before the probate court will release any of the funds for the beneficiaries. The whole point of probate courts being involved is to help prevent fraud after someone dies. So you can bet that the courts are going to be keeping a close eye on the biggest asset involved in the probate, which is usually the loved one's home. So every state has adopted different probate laws, but anywhere you go, probate has specific rules and a lot of paperwork. The probate court will have timelines and deadlines, and they require a specific order of operations for the way things are done. So that order of operations has to be followed by the personal representative of the estate, whether that's the executor or the administrator. And these are the steps in place to prevent pitfalls or delays or problems that can just crop up during the probate process, because oftentimes they do. I know that tiny bit of information that I just shared might sound a bit confusing, but if you are in the Butte County area and are heading into a potential probate situation, please reach out to me and I would be happy to sit down and talk with you more about it to see how we can help. And if you're not in our area, still feel free to give me a call and I'd be happy to recommend a probate realtor in your area for you. So with that being said, there's 4 things that I want you to consider when you are starting a probate process. The first one is when you are getting ready to sell the property, make sure that you interview a couple different agents or talk with your probate attorney about which realtor they typically use or recommend and why. You really want to work with somebody who is well experienced in the probate process. In life, we get a lot of advice from our friends and our colleagues and our coworkers, your neighbors. But during this process, you definitely want to have someone that can guide you through the entire way correctly. We have done this multiple times and have been able to successfully work through any pitfalls or issues that have come up. We know how to deal with personal property issues. We've helped navigate any needed costs for some small repairs and even some larger repairs that needed to be done. We've been able to work with contractors to set it up where they get paid out of the probate or at the end of escrow, making things much simpler for you, for the people that we've worked with. You want to make sure that you're working with somebody who is skilled. So the process is stressful enough, especially if you don't live in the same city or state that your loved one did. In our case, we keep really open and clear communication with the probate attorneys so that they are fully kept in the loop of how everything is proceeding. So whether you are an administrator or an executor, you are going to want to team up with someone that is an I dotter and a T crosser to make sure that all of the documents are completed correctly, so that, say, 6 months after you sell the house, you don't have somebody coming back, like the buyer, saying that something wasn't disclosed or something went wrong with the property that shouldn't have been that way. Which leads me into my second point, is when we're talking about preparing the house for sale, I do believe that any cost-effective repairs that can be done should be, unless the house is a complete fixer. For example, we've helped quite a few families in situations where their loved one was actually a hoarder. We've met them at the property and seen its condition, and we've worked with them and the attorneys to take care of it. We actually have in our business, we offer a free dump service to all of our clients, not just probate clients, but our buyers and our sellers, as that's oftentimes a sticky point for people when they're moving. What do they do with all of the stuff that they don't want or all of their moving stuff? It can be especially that way in a probate if maybe your loved one happened to be a hoarder. So on occasion, helping these families has just meant hiring cleaning crews to come and scour the kitchen and the bathrooms. But we've also had contractors come and do some needed fence repairs and take care of some of the really obvious dry rot in the eaves. And we've had full-blown situations where we've arranged for many, many full dump trailer runs to help get the house cleared out. Now, if repairs can be done, that will really increase buyer interest and the net proceeds to the estate. Once we have your permission, once you have the attorney's permission, take care of getting those things repaired and managed. It usually pays off. There's so much emotion wrapped up in selling a home, and having someone to help guide you through what repairs should and shouldn't be done, what can be done, it will help you avoid feeling overwhelmed. But again, before you choose someone to help you go through this process, please make sure you do your homework, because it's going to save you a lot of time. If you pick the right agent, the process will be much smoother. If you pick the wrong agent to help you, it could just cause more delay, more difficulty, and more stress for you and your family. The next thing I'll warn you about is trying to sell the property without proper authority. I heard a case recently where a real estate agent took a listing with a really sweet family, and the agent didn't even know that that person couldn't sell the house. You need to have letters of administration from the probate court stating that you have the authority to handle the sale of the house. So keep in mind that just because you are in the will as the executor, it doesn't mean that you can just stick a sign in the yard and start selling the house. You must be officially appointed by the probate courts. If there isn't a will, then the probate courts will again typically look through a list of family members and see who is the most qualified in order to go through the process of probate and selling the property. So please keep it in mind to make sure that you are actually authorized to sell your loved one's home before you start that process. The next thing I want to share with you is to avoid mishandling the documentation for the sale, and especially the disclosures associated with it. Real estate disclosures in California have set rules of what documents you need to complete. And then on these documents, it may say something to the effect of, to the best of your knowledge. And then there's a bunch of questions for you to answer. So you want to make sure that you have someone, really a guide by your side, who has done this many times, who can help you to complete the documentation properly. And then even after you complete it, you're going to want them to go back and review it to make sure that there isn't a better way to explain something. Because those disclosures then go to your buyer. And if they're not completely correct and not disclosing things that are obvious about the property, like for instance, if your loved one happened to pass away in the home, it's critical that certain things be disclosed in an exempt seller disclosure statement. The other thing is that the agents and the sellers, the executor or the administrator, they must disclose known material facts that would definitely affect the buyer's purchasing of the property. Let's say, for instance, it was obvious that there was a leak under the sink and the wall now had a substance on it. Let's not talk about what that M word substance may possibly be. But we want to make sure that that is disclosed, that there is a staining or some unknown substance due to a known leak. That way, the buyer can then sign that document that they understand, and they can either go forward with the process, with the purchase, they can ask for it maybe to be corrected, they can opt to get additional investigations to find out exactly what that substance might be, or they can end up backing out altogether. But it ultimately protects the administrator and the estate from, after that buyer moving into the house, discovering those obvious omissions on the disclosures and then coming back to you about it. So you want to be sure to have someone reviewing your disclosures before they are turned in. I know I was only going to give 4 suggestions, but I have one more, and it's to try not to leave the house vacant for too long. Sometimes there's disagreements amongst beneficiaries. Usually it's siblings, but sometimes people just don't move very fast in handling the personal property that was inside the house. So the home sits vacant for months and months, sometimes even years. Now, the reason I share this with you is because when a home sits vacant, typically the yards and the landscaping tend to get overgrown and the house becomes a bit rundown too. When it becomes obvious that no one lives in the home, it can unfortunately invite squatters, or it can just make the house look really uninviting or upset neighbors on the street, as having a next door neighbor that the house is left unattended can affect their property value as well if they decided to sell during your probate. You want to make sure that the house is kept up. You also want to consider insurance during that time. Insurance companies don't like to cover vacant houses, and while there is vacant house insurance, it usually costs 2 to 3 times the amount of regular insurance. But it's the price of protecting yourself as the administrator and the estate if you're going to choose to leave it sit vacant for an extended amount of time. If at all possible, I just don't recommend that. So as you can see, there are many things to consider, and these are just a very, very small amount of them while you're in the process of representing an estate. While completing your loved one's wishes, it's so important that you have someone that you trust that's going to have your back. Again, especially if you don't live in the same area as the house. Someone who can be your eyes and your ears and keep you informed on what's happening with the home. And our team at the NorCal Life Real Estate can be that for you if you are in the Northern California area, especially Butte County. Now, thanks so much for watching. I'm Sierra Haskins, and if you have any questions about the information in this video, as I just covered a very, very quick overview, and if you'd like to talk with me more about it, or if you'd like to talk with me about selling a home here in the Butte County area, please reach out anytime and I would be happy to chat with you. All of my contact information is right here in the video description below. Now, be sure to subscribe to our channel and watch more of our videos where we cover all things real estate, community events, hotspots, and more. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.